Hello, hello, hello. Good
Hi.
morning. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Nice to see
How-
everybody.
How's everyone doing today? Hello, Debbie and Diana and Laura. I saw a few others jumping in and out. Hope you guys had a good weekend. If you're here in Orlando, we have had amazing weather.
We have two here in Boston. It's been in the 70s.
What?
I know. I was sitting out in
Unheard
the last few days.
Look at you. You're showing some skin. I love it. I love it.
It's been nice to get some like fresh air and warm weather. So I totally agree with the whole weather thing. It's awesome.
Yes, it feels good, right?
Where's
Well, I
everybody
just want
from?
Hi, Joe. Hi, Debbie. Thanks for joining us. I want to welcome you all back to this is day 4 of our creative photo tips. We're going to be sharing. I want to review, see if I can remember. You guys can help me remember the first 3 tips so we can kind of use them to jump into tip 4 and start seeing all of these tips playing together in every single shot. So before we share tip 4, does anyone who's here with us today, who remembers what the first photo tip was? We're going to do this at the beginning of every new week. So this is the beginning of week 2. We're coming to you Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at noon here. And I want to hear from you ladies, everyone who's joining us. What do you guys think, if you remember, if you were with us on the first one, what was that first photo tip? Photo tip number 1. It's the most important thing we always tell ourselves, even before we pick up the camera, right? So, Alicia, do you remember what it is?
Our why.
Oh, yes. Any way you want to put it, your story, right? Why did you pick up the camera?
Story.
Exactly. So when we dive into realizing we have a creative perspective to share, that's the first step, connecting to our scene and seeing what it is we're going to capture in our story. So we have to connect to it. What is our why? The second tip, which is really the first physical action you take, is noticing with all 5 senses. So first, let me type this in. Photo tip number 1 is know your why. Or if you guys, everyone who's listening in right now, if there's another way you want to think of these tips, feel free to use your own language and your own anchor points, right? This is about creating new habits for ourselves and making ourselves automatically see things and think a little differently. So photo tip number 2, I can type fast. Sorry, it's Monday. Let's notice. What'd you say?
I was going to say, you want to start typing like the next one?
Yes, Alicia, seven. Notice, yes, exactly, Diana. Awareness, or to notice with all 5 senses. In Eckhart Tolle's meditations, he says there's all these different portals or anchor points to coming into the now and being present. And the easiest 6 ones to go with are your 5 senses and your breath. So if we can just take a moment and go, what do I hear? What do I see? What do I smell, taste, feel? I always end with that last one, feel, because that helps, bring that whole idea of our story back together. So photo tip number 3, who remembers Friday's photo tip? I'm hoping some of us got a chance to go out and shoot over the weekend, because tip number 3 was really the beginning of now using our camera to start to emulate and see that story, that perspective that we see. So who remembers? I see a couple people typing. Yes, Diana's on it this Monday morning. She's fast. She's typing faster than Alicia. Light, yes. See the direction and the power of the light. So in our DSLR class, we always say, what kind of light is there? And when you say the word kind, you can kind of think of different characteristics that go along with that light. The direction, where it's coming from, and how powerful it is. Is it dull, soft, wrapping, or is it really bright like a flashlight or the sunlight? So who thinks that they've kind of started to see things a little differently, or maybe not think, but feels like they've picked up their camera and seeing things a little differently since just these first simple tips that we've talked about. And I hope you guys are enjoying this in a way. Good. Laura says she's done too. Good. I want you guys to feel like when you go out and shoot, you're going to feel physically different too, because you're going to want to be in the moment a little longer. And one of the ways you know you're really getting it is if you try to explain this to someone else and they understand it just as easily as you do. So if you tell someone, oh, I'm just looking at the direction the light's coming from, all of a sudden you're going to help everyone around you open up and see things a little differently too, which is always fun. I know for Alicia and I, not just in teaching, but even when, you know, you're just picking up your cell phone, like you said last week, and you grab another camera and you shed light on yourself differently, and people just think it's so cool, right?
Yeah, it's fun. It's funny. I had a photo shoot yesterday, and it was in someone's backyard, of, you know, the whole COVID thing, but we kept our distance, and her whole backyard was more on like a pitch of like where water would flow to, but she wanted to do it out there, so obviously we had to go barefoot, and I was squishing and, you know, with the grass and the mud, and I was like, oh, this feels so good. I'm like getting completely grounded, and it felt so refreshing just to like be aware of that, you know, and her too is really fun.
Totally.
So
totally good. I'm excited to see some of those
moments, you know.
Yeah, we went to Lake Eola yesterday after dinner. Took the dog, stuck him in the bike basket, strolled the mile down the road to Lake Eola here in Orlando, and we just pulled out our towel, laid it down. Each had a little glass of wine, and we were not the only ones who thought of that. And for the last month, I'm like, where have all of these picnic people been? Like, we are having a blast just sitting on the grass. Everyone is 10 to 20 feet apart in their tiny little groups on their blankets, barefoot with their dogs or their kids. And we're just watching the sunset over the lake, the lights changing color. It's been awesome. It's this weird vacation from our normal mindset. And I've been enjoying nature a little bit more. So the garden too, the garden is growing for sure. I know I mentioned to everyone that I'd be sharing some garden photos. We're going to come back to those next week. I've got some new stuff getting planted. But this week, guys, to kind of keep the ball rolling, so after we're diving into light, we're going to take it to the next level. And photo tip number 4, do you remember what it is, Alicia? You want to share it with them?
Well, because they haven't seen it yet. Well, I mean, discover your hero, right? Is that where we're at, or catch the color?
Yes. Okay, discover your hero, absolutely. So when we are looking at this light, right, guys? And I guess the easiest way to start with this idea of discovering your hero is, let's look at these words a little differently, a little separately, okay? So discover has to do with letting it kind of unfold, right? You're not out there like searching and going crazy. You're kind of just letting it unfold in front of you, and you're discovering, getting back to your 5 senses, what are you aware of? So in that curiosity, something's going to catch your attention more than other things in your scene. And your hero, I like to use the word hero because now we're not talking about thinking that we need this main subject or this thing to totally fill our frame, but we can simply start to identify and connect with that one element that we like the most, that we want to be the main hero of our story. So I'm going to show you guys a couple of pictures and think about how maybe this first shot, your perspective of it might be different. The hero might be different in the shot, okay? But let's look at it from the perspective of all the things we've talked about before, and especially light, okay? So when I show you this first picture, I want you to think about the direction of light and what it's making you feel connected to first. So can everyone see that shot up on the screen?
Mm-hmm.
Let me know in the chat box if you guys cannot see the picture, or if you can, because I want to hear from everyone in here. Let me get our faces out of the way. I want to hear from you guys. And this may feel obvious, but that's why it's good to have these conversations, because sometimes it's not. What might be the hero that I discovered in this photo? And if you want to back up and try and answer these questions prior, okay, my why is obviously this beautiful beach scene, right? Feeling connected to the ocean and being on the water's edge. Noticing with all five senses, you can start to imagine the sound of the water, possibly the quietness. And then moving on to light, what kind of light do we have? Okay, we have sunlight for sure, but let's ask it in a different way. What time of day might this light show up? And I'm going to come back to Donna's answer there. So Laura thinks it's sunset. Debbie says the water looks frozen. I love it. Donna says the reflections in the water of the sun. So notice how all of you guys are connecting to some element associated with the light, right? And the water, okay? So now I'm going to ask it a different question. What actual part, if you were to point your finger at it, what part of the photo do you notice most? What would be the hero that you discover? Is it the pier? Is it the blue frozen water? Is it okay, so Diana says the lights on the railing. So Diana, just to confirm, are you talking about the lights along the boardwalk? That's a pier. This is Cocoa Beach Pier, by the way, in Cocoa Beach, Florida. Or are you talking about the lights in the water themselves? The end of the pier. So Laura's eyes go right to the end of the pier. So notice how we all connect a little differently to different parts of this photo, right? That is where I want you to feel like when you're behind the camera, you can kind of discover your hero. I'm not going to answer for Alicia, but another simple way of thinking of this is if she was out shooting yesterday, whatever her main why was, her getting her feet in the mud started to add to that discovery of how she was enjoying the moment, right? And probably created some different photos. If she hadn't decided to get her feet in the mud, she might have gone around that area or something like that, right?
You know what's funny is that client, asked me, like, I don't know what we're going to, I don't know what to do. And I said, just wait until I get there and let it unfold itself, because I already had a little vision in my head. I knew who she was. I knew what kind of story I wanted to tell, which was her story. But I needed to see her in her element in order to, yes, see the hero in that story as well. And she discovered that she was the hero, even though she was, not confident in that. And even just being grounded with her in those experiences, I let her do her yoga. She's a very health conscious, friendly person. She actually sells a lot of Arbonne stuff. So I got to tell her in creative ways that she couldn't envision herself. And she thanked me so much, but I didn't want to pigeonhole myself to this is how I'm going into this shoot. And this is, what my vision is, because it changed. That why completely changed as I shot her and saw her in her element, which was really, really neat.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it lets you get into your element too. It lets you as the creator connect to, Alicia's talking about a portrait, another person. So there's this really much deeper connection to that moment because you're sharing it with someone else and you're trying to bring their story out. In this case with a peer, you're really working with your own connection alone, but either way you still have to allow this moment to unfold. It's another way of looking at it in real life, not just in photography, is if anyone's ever studied or worked with manifestation, you have to allow your ideas to get concrete and confident in your head. And that's what creates the why. And then you go out in the world and you let go. You don't hold on to this perfect feeling of what it needs to look like. You go, okay, this is my vision. This is what I want to get from the world. This is what I want to put out there. Now I'm going to let go and surrender to whatever happens. And I'm going to show up the best way I can to make that, to allow that to unfold and not force it to happen.
I love that. It is better when you don't force it to happen, because you don't know what the light's going to be doing. You don't know what you're working with, whether it's textures or pattern, anything, shadows. You just have to kind of go with it, go with the flow, and see, you know, as it goes along, and let go of that perception of, I have to make this perfect, because that's going to happen in the process. You are just going to be in your element. You're going to see those things in the process.
And that unfolds with time. It goes back to, you know, the big picture with Live Wonderful, which is we are creative. So for us to allow ourselves to discover the hero in this moment that we decide to pick up the camera, we have to also allow ourselves to be courageous and let go and trust. Hey, it might not be perfect or exactly what I think, but I'm going to be open to anything. And that's going to mean I'm going to have way more possibilities of creating way more interesting pictures than if I was stuck in this box or idea of what had to be perfect. So with this,
sorry, I don't mean to take you away from the photo. I want you to like really dive into this photo because it's such a beautiful photo. But this client wrote me this morning. I haven't been able to write back. And just to like validate what we're talking about, she said, your talent is mind blowing. And it was an honor, not just to have you shoot me, but to watch you do your thing. It was pretty freaking incredible. That's what she said. And to me, I sat back and I was just like, she was inspired just for me being in my present moment, you know, and working with her. That was enough validation for me that I did what I was supposed to do. I fulfilled that purpose, you know, and it was that hero, you know what I mean? I had a little bit of hero in myself too.
Absolutely.
I was able to fulfill that for her, which is great. But I gave her that hero as well. I don't know what I'm saying, but it felt so good.
No, I get it. And here's the beauty of it. When you show up, whether it's behind the lens for a picture or just as a friend for someone in need, right? And you did that, you know, in an even grander way, being the photographer and storyteller you are in that moment, connecting with someone and making them feel not comfortable, but open to trusting what can unfold. That's what it takes to do portrait photography. And we're going to get back to that in a minute before we end this class. But in general, you guys are feeding off each other's energy. So the more you can be in your own present moment and show up as yourself and go, okay, this is my why, this is what I'm envisioning, but now let me intake this experience, my five senses, you know, the light, what am I attracted to, what catches my attention, what makes me curious and excited. The more you allow that to unfold and step back from it, you see so many more opportunities. You show up better as yourself. Now she's reflecting that energy. She shows up better as herself. And you guys are just feeding off each other the whole time, you know? It's not like when you set up a family portrait and it was one click and you were done. I mean, how long were you with this lady yesterday?
I was with her for 2 hours, and, you know, on my way there,
And how many photos?
Yeah, and she acknowledged, you know, that she was not like, she didn't know, you know, what she wanted. And I just, I reminded her that it's okay, number one, to not know. And number two, just to let it happen. I reminded her that I personally do much better when I get into that situation and I see what I'm working with and I can flow with it and start to begin to tell that story. So I'm even learning that about myself, especially talking and doing these webinars, you know, with all you guys. It was very unconscious for me, but I'm becoming more aware of those moments, and it's so great to be able to share that with you. And I'm sure, Danielle, like I want to hear about how you felt in this moment taking this photo, you know, and how you showed up. So let's teach
Yeah,
them.
and yes, and this is it's great. As usual, these are organic. I didn't know at least this shoot
What happened?
yesterday, but so on
I'm losing it a little bit.
a little bit of signal. Let me start over. I just want to bridge the gap there that the portrait, this kind of can relate to. You getting a warning that I might be losing signal.
Yeah, I'm here, but
if you can everyone still hear me back? I don't know. Second. She's saying I'm going in and out. So I'll just hey guys, this is all going to. Have you guys been getting the recording videos? Have you been able to go back and look at those recordings? You will get these. They're also going up on our YouTube page, so you can check that out. Let me know if, Alicia, can you hear me better?
I can hear you better now. You were going in and out, so I'm assuming that it might be happening for everybody else too.
Let me know, ladies, if you're listening in. Okay. I'll keep going. If you can't hear me, you're going to get a replay of this, but we'll make sure you get this information. So okay, great. Okay. What I was getting at is that Alicia's story and the stories we tell here in these workshops they're organic, and I didn't know she was going to have this photo shoot or this is what it would be about. And here she is able to relate to her moment now, discovering her hero with a portrait shoot, okay? Anytime, even if it's a landscape like this, it's still a challenge and something we have to do anytime we pick up the camera. So doing it with a portrait is that much more challenging because you're sharing that experience with someone else and you're having to, feed off each other's energy, right? And it's how do I explain this? It is one of the most joyous feelings in the world when you find success in that and you feel that click and you see from both perspectives that it works with the other person. And the same is true for, it's gratifying, exactly. And the same is true for the time you spend creating a landscape or, even if it's a still photo for your business or anything that you're shooting, right? In the give backstory, I wanted to go to the pier. I thought this was such a grand idea, like no one else has had this idea before. But I wanted to go to the Cocoa Beach Pier before sunrise. By the way, this is before the sun has come up. This photo was taken at about 4:30 in the morning. If you guys now want to take a guess at maybe what my settings were, go for it. Chat box is open. What do you think were our settings in this photo? If you know they were taken at 4:30 in the morning at Cocoa Beach, which is on the east coast of the United States. So I wanted to go here and shoot the sunrise, which meant I had to prepare and show up way before sunrise, which meant I was going to the beach without any light. So my fiance and I, we get all our stuff, we pack up, we go to the beach, and I'm so excited and I'm frustrated that we got there a little late and I feel like I have no time. So I grabbed my backpack, grabbed my tripod, and started booking it for the beach, through the parking lot, down the pier, down to the shore. As I'm running, I realize there is no light. So imagine showing up to this pier and there's no lights lit up yet on the pier. I turn around, I can't even see Jim anywhere. And now I'm like, well, shit. It's pitch black and I can't see anything and I'm on the beach by myself. So I'm like, this is not what I planned. So my eyes start to adjust a little bit, right? I hear him yelling for me, and I'm like, shit, now he can't find me either. He doesn't even know what direction I went to the beach. So I yelled at him and said, I'm to the left of the pier. I'm to the left of the pier facing the water. So I set up my tripod. And does anyone want to take a guess at what setting I used, what the settings were? Alicia, do you want to take a guess? What do you think? Well, what are some settings that come to mind when you look at this shot?
Yes, obviously you're on a tripod. It got to be a longer exposure, longer shutter speed to get the water thing like that.
Yeah. I'd say that's a slow shutter. Yep.
I'd say maybe around 200 to 400 ISO, especially if it was still a little bit dark.
It was super dark. It was super dark. It was not, let me explain this another way, guys. This is a test shot for a photo I'm about to show you. This was a test shot. This was me just setting up my lights and figuring it out because it's not easy to figure out. It was dark. Mm-hmm. It was dark. So imagine it's dark, like you walking into a movie theater, and it takes a minute for your eyes to adjust to the backs of the chairs and the heads and the chairs in front of you. So it's dark, right? So first thing is, yes, super low shutter speed. And I'm just going to tell you something this dark. I went all the way down to 30 seconds just to see what I was going to do.
I think I also started with a wider aperture too in order to get everything focused. So maybe f16.
Yep. So those were my first two thoughts. I want a landscape. Now, I didn't need to go to f16, but you do realize if I want everything in focus, I want that higher f-stop. So I knew I wanted the pier and the horizon, clouds. If I was going to get stars, who knew?
With it being dark, how did you focus? With it being dark,
how did I focus? So what happened was, notice where the pier is. I kind of broke one of our rules. The pier is set up almost dead center. So what I did was I set my camera to manual on the tripod, and my camera has what's called peak focusing. And if so, what you can do is in manual mode, as you zoom, as you change your focus ring, it will show you what structure, it's called peaking, and it like outlines the things that are in focus on your screen. So I focused that focus ring, I moved that focus ring until it showed me the outline of the pier. And then I knew I was focused on the pier, okay? And at f16, you're gonna get everything behind and everything in front. So notice even the sand in the foreground is pretty focused. So this setup, leaving the car, running to the beach in the dark, getting lost, freaking out for a minute, can't find my fiance, going, screw it, I'm just going to set the tripod anyway and see what my light does. All of this takes about 10 minutes, okay? In the 10 minutes between 4 and 4:30, the light is coming. All of a sudden, that the sunlight is like coming faster and faster. And even before the sky was blue and you could see the watercolor, all of a sudden, a guy got on the pier and started turning on the pier lights. So by the time I clicked, the third or fourth click after changing settings and messing with these, I think my ISO was probably around 200, maybe 400. By the time I clicked and the shutter stayed open for 30 seconds, the guy was walking up and down the pier during those 30 seconds, and he had actually turned the lights on. So notice how this, can you guys see my pointer on the screen? Mm-hmm. Notice how this light is brighter than these two lights. Notice how these lights aren't as bright. That is because he turned this light on first, and it was on for maybe half of those 30 seconds. Then he walked over and turned this light on, and they're walking back now to turn on the other light. So the lights went on while I took this shot. I had no idea how they were going to affect the image. But what mattered to my story was the water. You guys all connected to it. The water and the pier, and this was sunrise, not sunset. So I wanted this low shutter. I wanted that soft water. I wanted the shutter open longer. It was dark out, right? And I wanted the pier to be my focal point.
And
the lights were added.
The reason why the guy is not in the shot is because you had a long open shutter speed. So she was able to get him as like a ghost in the background there.
Yeah. So and it's a couple guys, actually, a couple, fishermen. They're walking back and forth on this pier. And so if something is moving and light is reflecting, that's how the camera sees things, is through light. As it moves, it barely gives a little bit of the reflection at each point in that frame. So, if I were to zoom in, you could, I don't know if you can see him actually with this shot. No, I don't think you can see them because they moved that quickly. Mm-hmm. But this might be a little bit of him over here, this pier. The idea here is that I had no idea what I was going to create. And even after I created it, I'm like, how did that happen? How is the sky so blue and the water so purple? This is technically an overexposed image. So those added lights and the sun rising too quickly and my shutter staying open for a bit too long created a story that added so many other elements than I expected. I simply by allowing myself to stand there and discover the hero, sit with the story for a little bit longer. So I want to show you guys another picture from that same 20 minutes sooner. Can you see this picture? Mm-hmm. Same intention, same story, same reason why. But everything else after that why started to change my perspective and my story, right? So still loved the pier, still loved the water, felt connected to that. But now the light has changed. The direction, number 3, that photo tip has completely changed in 20 minutes. So I decided to change my perspective. I moved to a new focal point, right? What do you think looks cooler than the other one? Diana, do you mean cooler as in you like it more, or cooler as in the color is a little bit colder? What do you mean by cooler? I'm just interested in your thoughts there. What do you think my shutter speed was in this picture? If you saw the picture before and you knew it was taken at 4:30 and I told you this one was taken right around 5 a.m. when the sun came up, the color looks colder. Yeah. So funny, Diana, I hope you're joining us next week because we're going to talk about exactly what you just said in next week's tip. So I want you to keep that in mind. But this is great. You're building awareness around what you're noticing, what you're curious about more. So she says the colors here look colder, right? You see a bit more of these blues and these bold colors here. So what do you think my shutter speed was in this picture? If I was at 30 seconds at around 4:30 and 30, probably maybe it was more like 45 minutes later, an hour later, all of a sudden the sun is above the horizon, which means, hint, a lot more light. What do you think my shutter speed was in this picture? Alicia, you want to take a wild guess? Anybody? I know we got a great group here.
Maybe.
Anyone want to take a wild guess? You're playing with manual mode.
I would probably say maybe like 3 seconds or so, because you still have a very hazy kind of feel to the waves in the water. So you still wanted to capture that in motion, not freeze it, number one.
Yeah. Yeah, do you guys notice what she's saying? Do you see how this still looks like it's in motion? It still has that soft, glossy feel. I think earlier Debbie said the water looked frozen. It looked glassy and calm. Mm-hmm. So this has a bit more texture and detail in it, right? But it's still soft.
Right.
So we shortened the shutter speed. Her thought was from 30 seconds to 3 seconds. So think about that. The shutter goes open. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. Now, Alicia is close, but she's not right. And here's the next hint to maybe help get to the right one. Diana's saying 500. So do you mean 1/500th of a second, Diana, you're thinking? So if that's your thought, it's somewhere between those two. So 1/500 versus 3 seconds is going from really showing motion to really freezing motion. And we definitely have some showing here. But here's the big guess here, guys. Laura's the closest so far. Laura said 1/100. Debbie said 1/4. You guys are getting so much warmer. So your key to figuring this out is that I am pointed at our source of light. So imagine if I took a flashlight and put it in your eyes. It's really blinding, right? That means tons of light is already coming through this lens. So to not overexpose, to not get too much light, but to still get enough motion, I'm right at a 60th of a second. So 1/60. So it's right where you can start to handhold that camera, but still show movement. And that's why you can see the structure of the wave, but it also looks soft. Now, here's the cool part about this whole situation. It was a pain in the butt. It was dark. I didn't know what I was doing. And yet by the time I was done shooting, I had probably shot at every single shutter speed you guys have guessed. Because this is not a perfect formula. This isn't just show up, look at the motion, and all of a sudden you know what shutter speed should be. This is about letting you discover your hero. In this moment, the movement was the hero. And I had to change my shutter speed to start to really discover how much motion I wanted to get that feeling across, to really connect with what I thought was the most beautiful part of the scene, was watching this curling wave every 2 to 4 seconds right where the sun was. And when I showed up at the beach, I thought the sun was going to set over here, and that's why I started on the other side of the pier. I thought I was going to get cut off the sun. And all of a sudden, I was on the wrong side of the pier, and I realized my hero changed. The sun showed up, and the wave showed up, and now I'm changing shutter speed to try and create that feeling. So over an hour time, we went from, let's see how quickly I can bring these up, from this shot, soft, easy, cold colors, oops, right? Really, really eerie and peaceful, like calm, to bold and bright, and some action in those waves there. So what do you guys think about this? When you think of discovering your hero, I know a few of us on these who are joining us live were talking earlier about shooting sunsets. So imagine how going and shooting a sunset now, you might change in your discovery mode, right? Like who your hero is. When we go down to Lake Eola, which I want to talk to you guys about some new stuff we've got going on. Every time we shoot that sunset, I'm always amazed at what people end up focusing on, what their interest is, right? Right now we've got baby swans being born. We've got all kinds of beautiful foliage. You know, everything's blooming. Of course, we've got the lake. Hopefully the swan boats will be out again soon. So I hope you guys are gonna, and Alicia, if you have anything to add, please jump in when you're looking at these shots. But I hope this fourth tip, guys, discover your hero, sets a tone for how you're gonna pick up that camera again the next time you do it, how you're gonna think a little bit differently, and see what makes you curious. Be aware of what catches your attention. What do you guys think? You like this? You like that tip?
Yeah. I always like that.
Great. So I'm excited to tell you guys, Alicia is coming here in 2 weeks. Good. Hannah likes the tip as well. And here's what we've got coming up these next 2 weeks.
Couldn't come sooner. I'm ready. I'm so ready.
I know. We're gonna have some fun. So this, let's see if I can remember these in order. I wrote them down just in case. This Thursday, we're doing our next beginner DSLR online class. There's plenty of room for everyone, no matter what kind of DSLR camera you have. Even if you feel like you took one of our free classes, or you took this class in the past, join us Thursday. It's $25. It's going to be a bit more in-depth. And we're basically going to get you guys set up for when Alicia comes, because the 16th, when she gets here, we're going to dive straight from beginner photography class into portrait photography and photo editing. So our next big group classes here in the studio are going to be May 16th. It's a Saturday. And Alicia, our link is livewonderful.com/tours. And I will go grab the other one as well. But that's the link you guys can go to sign up. So right now we're doing an early bird special. It's $250 for this whole full day workshop. All right, and here's what it entails. We're going to do 3 hours in the morning, where we're going to basically start off where we left off on our beginner class, where you're starting to master manual mode. And we're going to dive into portraits, some really basic but awesome, easy ways to get gorgeous portraits. We've got a couple cool pieces of equipment we're going to show you. And the best part's going to be, because Alicia and I are going to be here together, we are going to demo and use each other as models. So you guys are going to get a feel for what it's like to do posing, directing, seeing the power and the direction of light and how it should hit your subjects. That we're going to go over a lot of great stuff in that beginner class, so, or the portrait class. So
I enjoy being able to talk through what's going through my head. I'm sure you feel the same way. And so people can understand what we're processing and how, you know, we're moving about and what we're thinking about. That's cool to me.
Exactly.
I think that's a lot of value.
So we're gonna
interested.
Exactly. And it's the hands-on classes that are going to make this great. There is a possibility of getting this online. I don't think the portrait workshop is something in its full value can go online yet. We can definitely do a demo style quick workshop about portraits online, but the value of learning this is being hands-on and together. And listen, guys, we respect everyone's opinions. We understand that you know, we all can make choices on whether or not we want to start diving back into real life and coming into group classes. I want you to know that in Orlando, Florida, everything is open for business now, as long as we have less than 10 people in our group. We are going to be social distancing anyway, because we're all shooting and going off and shooting our own things. So we are healthy and happy and welcoming all of you back to class at your convenience. This is going to be our first class is from 9 to noon. Just want to join us for the portrait group, the portrait class. It's $150. If you want to join us all day, it's $250, and in the afternoon, we're going to dive into Lightroom. I know a lot of us on here are very interested in photo editing and organizing. It's natural because it is the next step after you start getting into taking pictures. So whether or not you want to get into the portrait side in the morning, you can also still join us in the afternoon. So that's also $150. That'll be from 2 to 5. All day is $250. One or the other, $150 each. So head on over to livewonderful.com/tours. You will see both of those available, as well as tons of other tours going on. This Saturday, I'll be down at Lake Eola, just having fun with manual mode, doing visual storytelling. And of course, we always have private lessons and consults available for you ladies and gentlemen out there who are just tapping into this and having fun with your creativity. So we're looking forward to having you, Alicia. I'm like, I need some good juju here. We need you coming to Orlando.
I'm coming. So yeah, I need some juju too.
We've got some nice warm days coming up. I hope everyone gets out today and tomorrow. Go shoot, go have fun, go play with your cameras. We will see you back here again on Wednesday at 12 p.m. We will be moving on to tip number 5. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your Monday. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you soon.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Mhm.